Welcome to Everyone's English. This is Minimal Pairs Practice with Isaiah. And today we're going to be talking about minimal pairs. What are minimal pairs? And we're going to look at some specifically. We have the O sound and we have the OW sound. So we're going to practice how to form these sounds, talk about when to use them, and then practice them in individual words. And I'll show you how to make the sounds with your mouth and with your tongue and with your vocal cords. All right, let's get started. So first we're going to talk about what is a minimal pair. Okay, so if you've never heard this term before, we're talking about two words that sound very, very, very close to each other, but they're not the same word. So they're going to have one sound that's different between these two words. So a minimal pair, again, is two words that differ by one sound. All right? And this can be vowels that differ, or they can be consonants that differ. Vowels or consonants. So I provided some examples here of vowels. So let's look at our first example. We have sit, the vowel sound sit, the short I sound. And then the minimal pair for this word would be seat, like that. Seat. So we have sit for the first one, and we have seat for the second one. So as you can see, they sound very similar. Sit, seat, sit, seat, if you say them very quickly. So that's why this is important, but we'll talk more about that. Let's look at our consonants here. We have berry versus very. Berry versus very. So we're focused on the consonant sound at the beginning of the word. And B versus V, they can be confused very often. So we have to make sure that we are saying them loudly enough and that clearly enough as well. So we have B, where the lips are hitting each other, B, and popping like that, berry, versus very. So we're doing the same movement with our lips where they're hitting each other, but we're vibrating the teeth on top of our lips like that. Very, very. Okay? So we have berry versus very. These are examples of consonant minimal pairs. So they sound very similar. That's why we want to practice each of the individual sounds that make them different. And so during the course of this minimal pairs series, we're going to look at a lot of different sounds that apply to this concept. Okay, why are minimal pairs important? All right, so we talked about this. These are two words that sound very similar, but they have one sound that's different. So in conversation, if you're speaking to someone and you use a minimal pair, if someone hears the other word, then they might misunderstand what you're saying. So we want to make sure that we are clearly pronouncing each of these sounds so that whatever you're trying to say is made clear. All right. So for example, let's go back to this slide. If you said sit versus seat, I sit in the chair. I sit in the chair. If you say it with a slightly different sound, you might hear I seat in the chair, and that would be a confusing sentence because seat is going to be the noun, and sit is going to be the verb, where you are no longer standing. So that's why this is important. If someone hears you say seat, their brain will get stuck on that confusion, and then they will not be able, and they might miss whatever you say after that. Okay. All right, let's look at O versus ow. How do we make these sounds? Okay, so this is the IPA chart. for both of these sounds. If you want to look further into those IPA charts, I can provide that reference material for you. But here, this just shows how these minimal pairs work in terms of their sounds. So it's a pair. We have a pair of sounds. The first one is going to be different, and the second one is going to be the same in this case. In the other ones that we'll look at, it might be the other way around. But in this case, both of them are going to share that second sound here. And what does it sound like? Well, this first one is going to be O. So I have this picture here so you can see how to do your mouth here. We have O. Just round it into that circle. O. And we're pushing from our vocal cords. All right, so for the second one, we have ow. So it's a different mouth movement that we have here, and we're going to extend our mouth out and drop it down. Ow. And then you're closing it into a circle at the end. Ow. All right, so we have O, O, and ow. And we'll see how these sounds look in terms of spelling on specific words so that when you're reading, you know how to pronounce these words as well. But let's start practicing with the easy terms here. So these are a few examples of minimal pairs. Tone and town. So here with that O sound, you might see an OE. And town, you might see an OW. All right, so this is that minimal pair O, tone, and the minimal pair ow, town. OW is very common for both of these. That's why it's important to understand how to use them and what it means for each word based on the sound that you're using. So what does the term actually mean? You can decide that based on how the word is pronounced. Okay. Oat, OA to get that O sound, and out, OU to get that ow sound. And we have no and now. So here's an example where it's the same OW, it's the same combination, but they have different pronunciations, so it tells us the meaning of the word. I know to understand something. Let's do it now. Let's do it immediately. So it changes the meaning of the word. Okay, and this last one is interesting as well because we have the same we have these minimal pairs, O, hose, and house. Now it's interesting I said house with that more of a Z sound instead of this S. So we have hose versus house. Why did I say house? Because this is a verb. In the context of your conversation with someone, you'll understand if it's meant to be a verb or a noun based on what you're talking about. In this case, house would be a verb. I house the dog in the doghouse. Dog house is the noun. So that's how you know if it's a noun or a verb based on the pronunciation. House, noun, house, verb. So these are two things that can tell you the difference in how they're being used. All right, so that's just an additional example of how to understand what the word is if it's very similar to another word. Okay, let's look at our intermediate ones. Now here, I recommend I'm going to read the words to you, and then you can pause the video and you can read the words to yourself. And this is going to be good pronunciation practice for you. I'll give you some more tips on how to practice these by yourself at the end of the video. So let's look at the intermediate words here. We have boat and bout. Boat and bout. Now we have woe and wow. Woe and wow. We have so and sow. Now this is one of those cases where this could also be so. And so it depends on how you're using the word. If you want to use the verb, then you would say so. If you want to use the noun, then you would say sow, like that. But in this case, these are minimal pairs. So this is going to be so, and this is going to be sow. All right. Then we have clone, and we have clown, row, and row. Again, these ones are spelled exactly the same, so your pronunciation will tell the listener which word you are saying. Row as in row a boat, row as in get into a fight or something. Okay, we have phoned and we have found, load and loud, groaned and ground, dote and doubt, and we have bow and bow. Or bow, there's two meanings for this one as well. So if it's a noun, you can say bow as in a bow and arrow, or you can say bow as in take a bow, like that. So it also depends on your context in the conversation. All right. And of course, this is not an entirely completely list of minimal pairs here. So I can certainly provide you with more references, and I'll be providing some of those links as well in the video. Okay. Let's look at the advanced terms here. We have poach and pouch. Again, I would pause the video and practice saying them by yourself. Gross, grouse, float, flout, bro, brow, tote, tout, honed, hound, foal, foul, dose, douse, moaned, mound, and code, cowed. All right. So practice reading all of these words. And my challenge to you after you watch this video is go back, record yourself reading all of these words, and try to read them 5, 6, 7 times, 10 times each, and then go back and listen to yourself reading them and see if you have made the sounds that we practiced. We have O and we have ow. So listen for those sounds, practice doing them, and then take these words if you feel comfortable with your pronunciation practice. Take these words and create sentences with them. So you can definitely just practice putting them into your own sentences, listening to yourself reading those sentences, and then seeing how it goes from there. If you want additional practice, comment below. You can always ask me anything you want, and I'll make sure to respond. If you're interested in private lessons, I offer customized lessons, 30 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour. It all depends on how much time you want, and we'll talk about how we can work that out. But if you'll just send me a message, I provide my email address below, so shoot me an email, and I would love to help you with your English practice. All right, thank you so much, and thank you for subscribing to Everyone's English.